Welcome. It's very precious to be here. Thank you very much. After a very enlightening opening speech by the chairperson, we're going to talk about this topic in terms of the opportunities that Turkey experiences from industry and from technology spheres. We have Binance TR CEO Mücahit Dönmez and Cemil Şinasi Türün from Boğaziçi University. As a digital hub, there are certain risks and opportunities that Turkey faces. But why are we discussing this? What's the strategic infrastructure underlying these? What opportunities are we talking about? Would you like to take over, Mr. Türün? Well, one of the main reasons why we're discussing this is that in the banking industry, JP Morgan, Citibank are leading players, and about 2 to 3 years ago, these banks, I don't know how to explain that in Turkish, but it's asset tokenization. So basically, they penetrated this business, asset tokenization, and they initiated a certain enterprise in that area. With that initiative, all of a sudden, in the last 2 years, the entire world, and in fintech and also cryptocurrency world, the work began in financial assets, and their tokenization has been on the rise. So what do we mean by tokenization? So you have these assets, and they are turned into tokens or coins, and they turn into a digital asset, and they are transferred to another system. So basically, from brick and mortar banks, they are taken from there, and then they're redefined on blockchain. That's why we're discussing this precise topic right now. So, what should we absolutely avoid missing out on? So, in terms of Turkey becoming a potential hub, well, that's a wonderful start. So we're basically talking about real-life assets turning into tokens, and it's it's full of opportunities for Turkey. And just like the name suggests, you can think of any assets really, liquid or non-liquid. All of them can be represented on blockchain. And you can also create further liquidity, and then real persons or legal entities can have better access to these. And this is the kind of technology we're talking about here. Well, maybe this is not an up-to-date figure, but I'm going to share it with you anyhow. So we're talking about $20 billion, the total size of it. And for 2030, for non-liquid assets, the market size would go up to $16 trillion, and that's expected for 2030. My personal forecast is that it could go even beyond this estimate. And Turkey should not miss this opportunity. I know that there are certain steps taken forward in that direction, and we'll hopefully wait for them. So essentially, what we're talking about is how Turkey is well positioned for international trade. How is that impacted by this ecosystem? So like I've said, it starts with the tokenization of financial assets, but right after, you have real-world assets, non-financial real-world assets that are also being tokenized. So it happened pretty quickly. So when you think of trade and business, when you think of international trade, you have commodities. They are tokenized as well, and that became an initiative. So to give an example, so you have wheat, for example, that's largely traded, or you have barley, hazelnuts. These are commodities, and they can be tokenized as well. In a region like ours, that became a hot topic, and you probably know the biggest seller of wheat in our region is Russia, followed by Kazakhstan and Ukraine, and the biggest buyers are Turkey, Egypt, and other countries follow. So there's a financial problem in Russia, obviously, because they face sanctions, and due to these sanctions, the remaining countries have started to think of how they could settle their trading of these commodities in non-banking systems. BRICS currency was observed as well, and actually the debate of BRICS currency rose from the fact that they wanted to settle this trading opportunity in a non-banking system. And also real estate could also be tokenized. All around the world, this is still being discussed. Dubai is leading the way in this area, currently speaking, and that is followed by, for example, precious metal being tokenized. Again, Dubai is leading the way, but Turkey also has a very large untapped potential in this area. So, a few examples from the banking industry. BlackRock tokenized their funds. Barclays received them. And JP Morgan was the intermediary agency. Citigroup, a more recent example. So they had deposit tokenization for their corporate clients. HSBC took physical gold and tokenized it, and now they're trading ingots in tokenized versions in bankets. And of course, I'm a former banker as well, and I'm quite happy to see the developments because the banking system is responding faster in this area and taking the lead. So when we think of the capital markets and gold trading, etc., they are highly interacting these days, and maybe they can combined reach further liquidity, and that's the promise that we're seeing with tokenization trend, right? But there are also certain things that we need to take into account. It's not just about regulation, right? The whole story is not full of regulation. Of course, that's the constitution, so to speak, of the whole business, but on the technology side, on the HR side, investment side, a lot of people should uphold responsibility. Well, before everything, as cryptocurrency platforms, what we need to do, and the biggest duty that we face, is the following. The state has issued regulations and legislation, and the second wave of that also is done by the state, so licensing will come next. When we think of platforms or stock exchanges, it's not just about obtaining licenses. The industry faces a trust issue both at home and abroad, and that's the number one issue that I'm saying. This trust issue should be either eliminated or minimized at least. These platforms should give people a sense of trust, to speak in simple terms. So basically, license obtainment will help build trust, but that will not be enough. Financial literacy should increase accordingly, and there could be investors in this area, and investors could help build that. So for example, Chain Analysis has data from 2024, and it shows us the following. So almost every piece of data is very much creating an interest in Turkey. So for example, you have USA, India, UK, and then Turkey follows. In AAA's data also says that cryptocurrency ownership is number 3 in the world for Turkey. And we also have our own research at Binance. So 62% of participants say that they trust this area, and they see these platforms as the digital finance technology of the future. That's very good. But I should add one thing. So, can Turkey be a digital hub? That was the question that we started with. But when we think of the high interest shown to cryptocurrencies and investing in them with high returns, that's all fine, but actually it doesn't turn you into a regional leader or a hub. You need to have a high level of awareness as an investor, and you need to do your own research, and most importantly, you should not limit yourself to cryptocurrencies, and you should also focus on the blockchain technology in the bigger picture. So we have largely remained consumers thus far. Since early 2024, we have seen an uptick on a positive level. We have an increasing number of projects right now, and I do expect a higher rise. I know that there are lots of smart contracts that young people are showing interest in, both on technical side and on the legislative side. A lot of effort is put into that area, but we need to be makers. We need to be at the lead. Maybe in the age of AI, we should ask the question, are we going to be the user or the used? That's a new test or challenge, maybe. How about the ecosystem? Because in terms of working together, if we are to be a hub, we need to take very serious steps. What would you like to say about that? Because I know that you have a variety of experiences in different areas. Well, if Turkey is to become a hub, and that's a real possibility considering our geography, and also it's promising because lots of university students are showing interest in that. I lecture at Boğaziçi University. Cryptocurrency and blockchain are areas that I lecture students in. I've been doing that since 2017. The best students of our university show interest and then join this area, both in terms of smart contracts and starting new startups. They're very enthusiastic, very willing to take these initiatives. There are lots of clubs working in these areas at universities, but like you said, in terms of a culture of working together, we have quite a bit of way to go. We have certain steps to take because collaborations, especially when we consider digital assets, are full of promises, very large promises. You can expect this from new startups, but at the same time, we're talking about B2Bs really, because I mentioned trade, which is B2B, but trade comes with collaboration between countries. So you need to have the right workforce, the right teams that need to work together within our country. But in the international stage, trading countries should establish standards between them. And they should start trading based on those standards. And that's highly crucial. There's an important development that I would like to mention. It happened a few months ago. Trump administration 2.0 introduced major changes in tariffs. And these tariff changes have a major underlying motivation to reduce the value of dollars and also reduce the government debt of the USA, and also to come up with an alternative global reserve currency. So basically, it had this push factor, and that was the desire with which they changed tariffs. In this context, Turkey really has a very valuable position because there are several candidates of this new alternative reserve money. This could be either cryptocurrency or gold. I'm not only just talking about physical gold, I'm talking about the token version of gold. So right now, just like Mücahit said, you have tokens that are pegged to assets on the stock exchange. These could be gold or other assets, and these are not trading assets, but they are saving instruments. That has been the case so far. But if you have gold that can be pegged to the cryptocurrency market, then you might want to revise your regulations. I think that could be quite crucial for us. And another thing, so we've talked about the interest shown here, and we've said that there's a lot of work to do, but let's also talk about the horizon. So we have land, we have wheat, we have our home, our gold, and then there are assets of companies, and can we consider, for example, imagine a wallet in which we put all of these assets together? There are challenges, risks, and opportunities. What kind of future estimates do you have? What are the duties that we should shoulder in this area? Well, just like I've said in the beginning, this is the fintech of the future. I agree with this estimate, and I support this actually as well. I think it's not going to be disruptive. That was the term that was quite popular. It was quite hype, and it was the hype in the beginning. But I think it's more transformative than disruptive. It shapes the fintech, but at the same time, when we think of the conventional financial sector, it is supported by this transformation. And actually, the conventional finance system is also transforming us. It's a two-way road, and they need to act together, these two areas. In terms of what we're looking at in the future, we talked about largely real-world assets, but from 5 years, in 5 years from today, we have already a high level of adaptation, and I think it will go even further. I mean, when we think of the interest in blockchain, it's going to go up as well, and we will also be on the maker side, and we'll have a higher number of local projects, and that's what I believe in. Hopefully, if we can come back here in 5 years' time, we'll discuss very, very different topics, and then we'll talk about why not do this, why not do that, because until then, lots will have been achieved. That really looks likely. I'm one of the elders in the industry, because when we think of the boards that we came from and from wooden chests, it really looks very, very hopeful from our standpoint. So we're talking about system rooms without oxygen and then AI as well. This is the age we're in. What are your future estimates? So in terms of digital assets, I believe that we are at a very, very major standpoint, and let me explain. Per person, gold reserve in Turkey is number one in the world, and I'm talking about real world, tangible gold reserves. We are talking about nearly 5,000 tons of gold kept at home, and I have a reliable piece of information that I can share with you. The real data actually is much higher, so we might have about 8,000 tons of gold kept at home, and we're talking about 100 grams of gold per person in Turkey. When you think of China and India, for example, they also have very high values in terms of per person gold, and other countries keep their gold in central banking systems, but we have a non-centralized way of reserving gold, so that's distributed or decentralized. So combined with blockchain, can you see the potential, really? So if our people are keeping their gold at home, not in the banking system, but if they start reserving them on the blockchain, if they indirectly integrate that into the financial system or in other parts of the economy, we can really hold a major position. Because we're talking about 8,000 tons. Maybe some of you know, the total government gold reserve in the US is 8,000 tons. And this is the one thing that I would like to mention. Secondly, when we think of the HR in Turkey and the potential that we have, just like Mücahit said, we're always in number 3 or 4 in terms of cryptocurrency trading and ownership. We've always been in the top 5. But when we think of gold, or other assets, other digital assets. With gold and other assets, we can actually have 10 million new people that can penetrate the cryptocurrency market. So it's about 9 to 10 million. So we can have another 10 million joining in. We're talking about our aunties and our mothers who are keeping their gold at home, and they can enter the cryptocurrency market. So I just wanted to point this out.
And also forms of access to different forms of assets, right? Exactly. Well, for example, jewelry stores are not really within the scope of our crypto system, but they could be included. So new faces from real life could also bring along important opportunities for the market, right? And it's not only a matter of opportunities for us, because the change is unfolding right now, and this also brings along certain concerns, habits, and our trust for the market, and there are certain steps to handle and tackle these issues, right? Would you like to elaborate on that a bit? Yes, the issue of trust is everywhere. It's all across the globe. Like in Turkey, and it just didn't happen out of nowhere. We faced a disaster of Totex in 2021, and there were global examples. FTX was one of the examples that happened globally as well, and all these incidents triggered concerns in people, especially in an unregulated environment. People cannot place your trust in you by giving their assets, or they would stop doing that. And we need to contribute significantly to the solution of this problem, and regulations is an important point here, and establishment of a legal framework, legislative framework, and ongoing efforts in this area are very much needed. And all those operators having to obtain a license, and being licensed is not really easy. And first of all, you need to be recognized as capable enough to receive that license. And even if when you're licensed, this would initiate the first stages of trust, and you need to also sustain your existence and presence as well. Sustainability is key, it's essential, and as Mr. Professor mentioned, 10 million, estimated amount. Well, there are not comprehensive studies about that in the country. However, 8 million to 12 million is the number of people who have at least one crypto asset. So the interest is definitely at higher levels. So there are people who are very much interested but lack trust, so they have not really ventured into that. And we need to take steps to address that as well. And responsibility is key, and we need to take on the responsibility here. And for this kind of a lack of trust, the market itself and the industry itself paved the way for that. So we need to take a step towards it. And we're talking about collaborations here. We're talking about partnerships, and there are technology companies would like to transfer their activities into Turkey, or those enterprises would like to transfer their technologies and know-how to other countries. And for example, foreign investors, do you think they see any promise, or do you think the market is attractive enough, or it's compelling enough? Our country has been a spearheading and pioneering company. The secondary regulations are slated to be introduced soon, and TÜBİTAK releases documents. As for recording, there are activities and efforts are underway as well. But these are quite progressive movements across the globe, and there have been countries who have issued regulations in the past. However, they have not really adopted the eagerness to implement it across the entire population, and Turkey is one of the rare countries about that, and we're standing at a lucky position right now, and our geographical location also brings along certain opportunities as well, and we are at the same level as Dubai right now. We can compete against Dubai as well, and foreign investors and their approach to Turkey could be shaped by this kind of a perspective, and the number of people involved in this area and all those people in fintech. And Turkey is a leading country in terms of fintech as well, and no need to talk about that really. Turkey has been a pioneering country for the past 2 decades. We have developed quite innovative products, fintech products, and there are foreign investors who can actually identify the opportunities here. And I hope and I'm sure that their representatives are with us in this room right now. Yes, the markets coming together or markets standing close to one another to create a common ground would also help with liquidity. And this is probably going to be an important step, right? Thank you very much, and I hope everybody enjoyed this session. And thank you very much for your patience and interest. Thank you.